unusual and rare occurrence. In fact, it's a first occurrence. Our fourth podcast of the week, a special edition of the Bob McCown podcast.
You're gonna have to take a break. I mean,
I'm going to take a break right in the middle of the show.
I mean, you're working too hard, Bob. Working too hard, man.
Well, it's the stupid bowl, and we're certainly going to give it its due, and it will happen whenever this is released or you're watching on everybody. Well, everybody knows when it's going to happen. John Sham.
This podcast or the Super Bowl?
No, the Super Bowl. I don't know when the podcast is going to happen, but sometime on the weekend.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're watching or listening to this before the game, as opposed to after the game, in which case all four of us will sound completely stupid. Matt SEKERES is with us up in the corner, and Howard Simon down in another corner, if you're watching the podcast. Well, after a very strange season, with essentially few, if any, people in the stands, and going through this COVID thing we've been going through, is this Super Bowl any more special, any more different, more anticipated? Simon, what do you think?
No, I mean, it's different. I wouldn't say it's more anticipated or anything special. It's different. I mean, the whole week, no media day, no crazy buildup, all the hype, the commercials will be different. I mean, I'm going to guess there won't be thousands of people running near the stage at halftime for the weekend. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that is different. But to me, Bob, no, it doesn't make the game any more special. It is still a big game. It's the championship and all that, but it's definitely a different week. It did not feel the same like a normal 2-week buildup to the Super Bowl.
What about the team, SEKERES? You've got two pretty good stories. You got the defending Super Bowl champions, and you've got that Brady guy. That really, at the end of the day, full credit to Tampa Bay as a team, but the story's Brady, period, right?
Yeah, I'll go the other way from Howard just to be difficult here. I think it is more anticipated. To me, this is one of the great quarterback matchups in Super Bowl history. I think it stands with Montana Marino, Montana Elway, Breeze Manning. Kansas City looking to repeat. We haven't seen that since Super Bowl 38, 39, New England, a team that we call a dynasty. It's pretty hard to do that these days in the National Football League. And of course, Tom Brady is looking to push history even further. And I don't know about you fellas, but I've started to see a whole lot of who is the GOAT of GOATs, Tom Brady or Michael Jordan talk. If Brady were to win this, and now a 7th championship in his 10th Super Bowl appearance. So I'm very much anticipating what we're going to see on Sunday. I think it could be a fun game with a lot of offense. I think it could be close towards the end. So for me, it's got all the elements other than the lack of fans, or at least half capacity crowd, whatever it's going to be.
You got to understand, from my perspective here in Buffalo, last thing we wanted to see was another Super Bowl with Tom Brady.
That's right.
He's been in way too many times, So, I mean, think about it. So he has played 19 full seasons in the NFL, 19 where he has been a full-time starter. He's been in the Super Bowl 10 times.
Yeah.
So he's ruined many a Sundays for us. The pizza's going to be fine. The wings will be okay. Blue cheese, not ranch. But I get it. You're right, Matt. It's probably the dream matchup from the NFL's perspective. From Bills fans, we're tired of seeing this guy, even in a different uniform.
By the way, I can't even think that you actually tried to suggest ranch at any moment, as opposed to blue cheese. You're from Buffalo.
Well,
You're from Buffalo.
You never say that, but I know there are misguided people out there.
Well, the thing for me is,
hold up my hand.
Oh,
you keep the blue cheese.
Oh, come on.
Stop, Bob.
Gotta have ranch.
It.
Oh,
this is a different type of Super Bowl, and I'm going to go a little on and off tangent here. It's a different type of Super Bowl when we really haven't talked about the commercials very much, and big companies like Coca-Cola and Anheuser-Busch are opting out.
Yep.
So there is something different about this, and I do believe there isn't near as much hype, even though, as a football fan, I have enjoyed this season purely from a football perspective as much as I have any of them. I think there's been some great storylines. Brady and Gronkowski in Tampa are obviously one. Mahomes himself is another one. And to think that we've gone through this whole season, and the two best teams do show up at the end. Man, oh man, I think this is, with all due respect, Howard, I do think that this is one of the great matchups, purely from a football perspective.
Oh, I get it. And like I said, and it's not just a Buffalo thing. I mean, I think I'd probably speak for a lot of people in New York City who are Jets fans, a lot of people who are Dolphin fans in Miami. It's just when you've been tormented by this guy for as long as he owned this division, and he owned the division. No, if I could disconnect, if I could take myself away from the AFC East, looking at this from our perspective, sure, it's a great story. Brady leaves New England and he goes to Tampa. He's right back in the Super Bowl with another team. He could become the second quarterback in the history of the game to win the Super Bowl with two different teams. He is far from shot. We thought last year the guy was shot. He's not. And he's going against the team, the quarterback, the guy who most people would anoint, if there is a next Brady, it's the guy in Kansas City.
Well, the cup half full. The cup half full of that is, sorry, Bob. The cup half full of that is there is no Bill Belichick.
Amen. Yeah. No. Look, believe me, New England being bad this year was really a lot of fun.
Well, let me give you the hypothetical. If the Bills had made it to the Super Bowl and were up against Brady, would you be like, would you hate that, or would you relish that opportunity?
No, I would have absolutely been the most miserable human being on earth for the last 2 weeks. I would be, I hate to say I would have been scared of the game, because the Bills, I know they lost to Kansas City, guys, but I think they would have been good enough to beat Tampa. I think Kansas City is the best team in football.
Yeah.
But no, I think, Bob, a lot of Bills fans honestly did hope for that, because it would have been the whole beat the demon kind of thing, exorcise the ghost of Tom Brady, beat him in the Super Bowl after all that aggravation. I really didn't want any part of it, because if he won the game, it would have just made it more miserable around here.
Yeah. The thrill of winning wasn't as big as the fear of losing again for him.
I think that's a good way to put it, John. It would have been, it's a great season, and people were down, of course, when they lost to Kansas City. But Bills fans feel really good about where the franchise is headed and maybe getting into the game next year. If they got there and lost to Brady, I mean, they'd still be fine. It wouldn't scar them. But from a mental standpoint, it would have been really hard to watch.
One thing we should mention, guys, that this is the first home Super Bowl, right? Like, this is the first team playing a Super Bowl in its home stadium. And,
amazing.
Normally we'd be wondering, okay, if Tampa wins, what kind of scene is playing out on the streets of Tampa, Florida? How amazing that would be. Sadly, I'm preparing myself for, if the Buccaneers win, to have one of the great super spreader events of this pandemic on Sunday evening as people gather in the streets of Tampa. Well, should the home team win.
Yeah, and the thing we have to remember, though, is it would be a home game in theory only, because those of us who've been to Super Bowls understand that almost no local fans get tickets.
That's right.
A negligible number. I don't know what the number is, but
no fans, period, Bob. It's a corporate crowd with a few football fans who are lucky enough to get there. Yeah.
Sure it is. So you're right. The scene would be outside the stadium.
That's right.
And on the streets, as opposed to inside the stadium.
But if you would have had the secondary market, if you got people with Shannon's money on the secondary market, then Bucs fans could have been just paying out the nose to say, I've got a chance, maybe the only chance of my lifetime, to see my team at home win a Super Bowl.
But
I'd have to debate whether I would have had to debate whether to buy the tickets or charter there. So that's the.
Well, if you can afford the tickets, you can afford the charter. Come on.
Well, and let's be honest. Tampa has one of the lowest, not standards of living, but wages are very low in Tampa, and there's rich people everywhere. But when you're talking Super Bowl kind of money for tickets, I wonder how many Tampa Bay fans could even contemplate going to the game. It's one thing to pay $100 or $150 for a ticket. It's another thing to pay $5,000, $10,000 for a ticket. And those are the kinds of numbers we're talking about.
Yeah.
At least.
No, you might have just had fans say, fine, I know they're right here in my stadium. I'm going to a bar to watch the game with a whole bunch of fans.
I think probably. Yeah.
What about the matchups? What about the game itself? I mean, the Kansas City offense isn't a question mark. I don't think the Tampa Bay offense is a question mark. This might be the best receiving core that Brady's ever had in his life. when you think about it, with Evans and Godwin, and I think Brown's going to play, so he's back practicing. So what's the question mark? In my mind, it's the Kansas City defense. To me, the Kansas City defense, of those three things, special teams are special teams, but the Kansas City defense, to me, will decide who wins this game.
You know, there's a part of me that loves sort of the game within the games here, some of the individual matchups, strategy and tactics and all of that. There's a part of me that is siding with Howard here in that Kansas City was the best team in the AFC, and the AFC, for my money, was far superior than the NFC this year. I'm old enough, like you guys, to remember that run the NFC had from the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s where they won every single one. I'm not sure Tampa actually is the best team in the NFC, was just playing best. So there's a part of me that wants to make it that simplistic, and yet then when I start looking at the individual matchups, I can find a case for Tampa.
Yeah, I think John.
But Maddie, how can you say that when Tampa goes into Green Bay?
Yeah,
it's 24 Fahrenheit degrees. Did that for you, Howard?
Mm-hmm.
It's 24 Fahrenheit degrees. They sack Rodgers 5 times. In many ways, they dominated the game.
Yeah,
they dominated the game, and we all thought the Packers were the best team in the NFC.
The answer to me, John, is I was never sold on Green Bay. They were a 13-3 paper tiger last year, and quite frankly, I thought they were a little better this year. But Green Bay to me isn't good enough on defense. And when they lost the left tackle back to Yari, the blindside protector, I thought they would have some trouble. And sure enough, they did. To me, the best team on paper was New Orleans. It's just the quarterback got old and not very good towards the end of the season for the last few years in Drew Brees. But no, to me, there's a very interesting matchup in this game. Both the Tampa safeties, Antoine Winfield, the fine rookie, who has played beaten up through the playoffs, was limited at practice yesterday. And then the other safety, Jordan Whitehead, who's in a non-contact jersey. They're both going to play in this game against Patrick Mahomes in the deep ball. Like, to me, that is quite susceptible to some long passing plays. And the other thing is, Tampa Bay played dime defense something like 8 snaps all year. It totally flies in the face of modern defenses. They want to put linebackers on the field, and frankly, with Devin White, Levante Davis, those are fine linebackers. I'd want them on the field too. But you think you're going to cover Kansas City skill people with linebackers? I'd be a little worried about that.
Well, there's a whole bunch. I mean, we can go down a whole bunch of roads, and I want to start by disagreeing with John when he said the Kansas City defense will make the decision. I think it's actually the Tampa defense that will make the decision, and whether that defensive line can put pressure on Mahomes and keep him inside. If Mahomes gets outside, you know, he becomes far more dangerous, not just to run, but he's very adept at throwing the ball when he's moving. And you give him a little, you know, an extra second or two, you're in trouble. Here's something that concerns me about Kansas City. A couple of weeks ago, they played the Cleveland Browns, a team that is my team and that I watch every week. And I know
12 minutes. It took 12 minutes to mention the Cleveland Browns on the show. 12 minutes.
But there's a point to it, unlike the nonsense that you're spewing here. The point is this: the Cleveland Browns, whose defense was at best suspect all year. And I know Mahomes was hurt and out for a bit, but they contained him. They held him in check. I'm not sure I can analyze exactly what they did or whether there's anything to be learned from it. And maybe it was just a blip and an off day, because certainly the defense or the offense was really good against Buffalo. But I think Tampa Bay's defensive line, which can pressure the quarterback, maybe has the ability to decide this football game. Simon, you were nodding a little bit.
Well, can I disagree with all you guys? Is that all right? Can I disagree with everybody?
You can, but you'll never be back. Go ahead.
Fair enough. Hit mute. I will tell. The game comes down, as it always will when you play the Chiefs, your offense. It's very simple. You're not shutting down Patrick Mahomes. Look, I think you guys, I'll tell you, Bob, your point to me, if you're going to hold down Kansas City, you had best get a pass rush with 4 guys, and you drop 7 into coverage, because you do not want to blitz Patrick Mahomes. The best team I saw do that to Kansas City, really the only time I saw Mahomes look confused, like holding onto the ball, not sure what to do, was New Orleans. They rushed 4, and he didn't know what to do for large chunks of that game. Guess what? Kansas City won, and they scored over 30 points. This game is all about Tampa's offense. You have to score with Kansas City. The Bills' offense, now this it indirectly can go to the point about Kansas City's defense. I would tell you this, guys. I forget whoever, John, I think it was you, made the point. Kansas City's defense on paper, you'd look at it and go, you'd have them as 4th of the 4 main units. And you're probably right. Don't underestimate Kansas City's defense, because we did here. I didn't think they could match up with the Bills receivers, and they did. And they took those guys out of the game. They'd have to figure out how to stop Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, which is really problematic. But it's Tampa's offense, fellas. There's a good chance Kansas City's getting to 30. Brady can't turn the ball over. Brady's got to – now he's good enough to be able to understand disguise coverages pre-snap, and then they change it on him. Joshua's a little confused. Brady won't be confused. You got to score. You have got to match these guys touchdown for touchdown. When you get into the red zone, it's touchdowns. It's not field goals. I think they got to get over 30 if they're going to beat Kansas City on Sunday.
The interesting thing that, talking about Mahomes and getting outside, there's no Eric Fisher on the offensive line this week. That's a big loss. And Mitchell Schwartz is probably questionable. So all of a sudden, that's going to be a patchwork offensive line for Kansas City. And to everyone's point, Tampa Bay does rush 4 guys.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay, do. That's how successful.
And they do it effectively too. They don't just rush 4. They're good at it.
Matt made a great point about the Green Bay game. Matt, your point was right. I mean, if you good luck, Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett. I mean, that's tough. I mean, with starting tackles, that's tough. With backup tackles, that could be really, but Mahomes, Mahomes is so good at escaping it.
Well, that's the thing, Howard. Like, I think there's 3 different ways that Kansas City's going to mitigate that pass rush in their beat up offensive line. Number one, Andy Reid's a smart guy. The ball's coming out quickly, right? Like, he's not going to sit there and ask Patrick Mahomes to wait and throw the football. Secondly, Patrick Mahomes is pretty slippery in the pocket. He might be able to avoid some of that. And then thirdly, and this is something that Patrick Mahomes does, and I've talked to quarterbacks and quarterback coaches about this, that I'm not sure anybody in the history of the sport has done. Every passing play has a launch point designed in it. So whether it's a 3-step drop, 5-step drop, 7-step drop, shotgun, what have you, there is a place on the field where the ball is designed to be thrown from. It doesn't apply to Patrick Mahomes. He just keeps drifting back, and his arm is so strong that he can mitigate wherever he is on the field, launch point wise, being completely out of whack, and still get the ball from A to B quickly and before the defense is able to react. So he's such a difficult guy to play against because of those things.
Now, now we know he has turf toe or whatever, and it probably is insignificant at this point in time, or relatively so. Although he says he's not 100%, he says he feels better. He also had a concussion. Mahomes is going to run some. He's going to get hit some. Does that become a factor in this game? Because if Mahomes is not the quarterback, all of a sudden, all bets are off.
I don't know. I saw Chad Henne go 21 yards 3 weeks ago. It was fantastic. Bob, it was fantastic.
Well, you're really trying to stick it to him, aren't you? What team did he do that against? You're a nasty man. I always thought you were a nice guy, John. I've never seen this side of you. Wow.
By the way, we know it's Chad Henne for Kansas City. Tell me the backup quarterback for Tampa Bay.
Who cares?
No, well.
Hey, not to get on Howard's wrong side, but I believe it was Rob Johnson the last time they won the Super Bowl.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who? I don't. Sorry. I think
guy who was better than Flutie, right?
Flutie, yeah. No, I lived through that. Yeah. I think Bob, you're right. I mean, I think I'm not sure how much you would want him to run. He can run to extend plays. He's very good at running to avoid the pass rush, step up, maybe get to.
I get it.
But you're right. He didn't really, and the Bills didn't really get to him. I'm trying to recall if he took a big hit in that game. He looked like he was fine. He was moving okay on the toe. I thought he was very accurate and pinpoint. So he seemed to be the normal Mahomes. But they didn't really get to him and knock him around in that game. Not that I'm extolling the virtue of going after a guy who had a concussion. He really, there was no big test in that game.
By the way, it's Blaine Gabbert. So just for the record.
Oh my. Blaine Gabbert and Chad Henne. That'll be fun.
Yeah, welcome to the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Well, listen, you know, when you have, you know, as Bob talked about, when you have Patrick Mahomes, who, you know, has, you know, can be a daredevil out there. And the amazing thing about Brady in his career, and doesn't get talked about very much, is other than the one season, he doesn't get hurt often. I mean, this guy, he's a warrior. He's a soldier. It's good. Is it going to happen once? I don't know. I mean, you have to think that the quarterbacks, the second quarterbacks of both teams aren't going to play, but you just never know.
Well, and I think we can all concede that Brady is as smart as they come at quarterback. He's the most experienced there is, and he knows how to not get hit. Partly, he's not afraid to throw the ball away. And, even, you know, I know these are NFL quarterbacks, and they've been playing for a long time, and they're smart and they know what to do. But they don't like no quarterback likes throwing the ball away. Brady does it all the time. If he feels the pressure and doesn't see somebody open, that clock inside his head starts to tick, and he says, okay, I'm just going to get rid of this thing and start over.
And Bob, that's a great point, because here's the thing. We can talk about Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul all we want, but historically, Tom has not been bothered by the edge pass rusher. Howard can attest to this. Why the Bills draft Ed Oliver, Marcel Darius in the first round. The push has to come from up the middle. You got to get in his field of vision. Tampa has some players there. Kansas City has some players. I mean, Chris Jones, a damn fine defensive lineman, but can you get in his vision? Can you disrupt his field of vision downfield? To me, that's almost or more important than can you get to him from time to time on the backside off the edge.
Puts a ton of pressure on guys like Breeland, Sorensen, and Ward in the Kansas City defensive backfield. I'll tell you what.
Huge thing I'm looking for is in the first quarter, how much are they going to let the corners get away with physical play? Because if they're quick on the flags, to me, that has implications for both of these secondaries, because they're both rather physical. But I think it may have bigger implications for Kansas City with Snead and Breeland trying to fight with those big Tampa receivers.
Well, and somebody, they're going to have to do something to try to control Hill somehow, some way. I don't know how they can do it. Nobody has all season, but they're going to have to try to do something to control Hill.
Remember, in the first game down there when they played in Tampa, Hill went for like 200 yards in like the first quarter, maybe halftime. He was unstoppable in that game. And then, okay, let's say you come up with a good plan for him. Who's covering Kelsey? You know, Matt, you mentioned the linebackers, and they're athletic. They're very talented. But it's one thing to have those kinds of linebackers, and another to say you got to deal with Kelsey. You probably don't want to play man-to-man against them. And if you're in zone, this guy's great at finding a spot and sitting in a zone.
Have we ever seen a Super Bowl with two greater tight ends opposite each other? I mean, you can say Gronk's not at the peak of his career, and I think that's a fair assessment.
Well, last year you had Kittle and
George Kittle and Kelsey.
And Kelsey, the only one I could think of. But it's not that often. You're right, Bob. It's really hard to come up with some. And Gronk is playing really well for them.
See, I think Cameron Brate's the best tight end they have, but I hear what everyone's saying. Gronk on any given day, sure.
Yeah.
Well, and we know Brady is certainly inclined to use Gronk, and I wonder whether these two quarterbacks focus less on their wide receivers. And I mean, this decision has already been made. We all know that. This isn't an instinctive thing that's going to happen in the middle of play. This is by design as they put their play selections together. Are these two teams in a Super Bowl where it's easy to be conservative and throwing to your tight end tends to be a conservative kind of play? Are we going to see these two guys catch a lot of balls?
See, I don't see it. I don't see it for Brady simply because I think his outside guys are so good.
I agree with John.
I just think they're so good. I mean, gosh, I mean, Antonio Brown, who, you know, the resurrection of Antonio Brown, to think that he could actually win a Super Bowl this year, to me it's some sort of a story. I'm not sure if it's a good story, but it's some sort of a story. But he's going to be. With Hill on the other side, Brown's going to try to make sure that everybody thinks he's the best wide receiver in this game. And I think that the ego will help Brown play his best game of the year.
Yeah, I think with the tight ends, if it came down to the two guys, look, Kansas City can win the game. If Hill has an off day, Kansas City can win the game with Travis Kelce being your main option in the passing attack.
Sure.
I don't think Tampa can do that with Gronkowski. He's played better than I thought, but and I don't think Kansas City's shutting down, Evans, Godwin, Miller, Brown.
Right.
But if
Scotty Miller,
little
Scotty Miller,
right?
The Tampa Bay's answer to every small wide receiver or receiver that Tom had in New England, right?
Yeah, fast guy too. But so if you're able to make this, just simplify it, Bob, to the two tight ends, I think my money is going on Kelce over Gronkowski.
I don't disagree with you at all. The counter to that, of course, is if Kansas City's defense rightly focuses on Tampa Bay's wide receivers, maybe they don't focus on Gronk often enough. And because Brady, because Brady and played together for so long, maybe maybe he winds up being a guy who catches 6 or 7 balls.
And Bob, I'll agree with you on this. I like Levante David and Devin White covering Travis Kelce more than I like the Kansas City linebackers trying to cover Tampa's tight end. Willie Gay's going to miss this football game, that rookie who was one of their linebackers who would be in that spot. So I'll concede you that point, but I'm not necessarily sure the tight ends are going to be the difference in this game.
If there was a weakness, Matt, you're right. I mean, if there was a weakness to point out with Kansas City's defense, they did not do well covering running backs and tight ends. So,
and they don't stop the run much either, Howard. They're a very middling run defense as well. Like, to me, if one of the keys to this game is Bruce Arians and Tom Brady can't fall in love with the Tom Brady goes out, wins another Super Bowl MVP, throwing the ball all over the yard. They have to establish the run. Like, frankly, I think this game goes Tampa's way if Brady's closer to 25 throws than he is 35 or 40 throws. Because that means they've got a running game going, and that means they're multidimensional. Going to keep Kansas City guessing on defense.
But again, here's the problem. And please, Bob, don't hate me for bringing this game up. Here's the problem with Kansas City. And Cleveland's not the only team that had to deal with this. In the playoff game against Cleveland, before Bob could turn around and have his first slice of pizza, they're down, 14 points, or they're giving up touchdowns on the first drive. Kansas City is they're such a quick strike. They're such an explosive offense. And if they get a touchdown lead or 10 or 14 points early, is Arians sitting there going, I got to get the ball to Fournette? Or is he thinking, I've got to get 35 or more points? Throw.
Yeah.
Well, that's all valid. I mean, my thought process is, and again, I'm trying to think like Brady and his experience and the fact that he's been through this so many times. And we know Mahomes was in the Super Bowl last year, but that's 1. He's got 10. Are you, if you're Tampa, are you running the ball? Are you trying to keep Kansas City's offense off the field?
Yes.
You'd like to keep them off the field, whether it's running or passing. Yeah, ideally, you want to limit the number of possessions the Chiefs offense has in this game.
Yeah. That's what last year, that's what they were. San Francisco was able to do that for much of the game last year, to keep Mahomes off the field, to run the football. I mean, if not for a bad day from Jimmy Garoppolo, I think it was 2 interceptions, might have been a fumble there as well. If not for a bad day for Jimmy Garoppolo, like, San Francisco wins that game last year. And they do so in part by mitigating the number of touches Mahomes gets.
All right. We could yak forever and ever and ever.
Well, hey, I want to talk about.
Again, you're going to do this.
Yeah. Well, we haven't talked about the 2 coaches because I think they're 2 great stories. Who do you think's got who's a better offensive mind? Because Arians has always had that part of his credo, and obviously Andy Reid's done a marvelous job. Who do you like better as an offensive coach, and who's got the advantage?
Who's taking that one? You
go ahead. Go ahead. I couldn't care less.
I think it's close. I would give it to Andy Reid. I think Reid is, not that Arians isn't, but Reid is so creative. He's had so many ways, different schemes, different ways to always evolving. Here's a guy who's however many years he is old and been in the league, and he is always on the cutting edge of coming up with something offensively, something different, something creative. I think it's Reid. He's aggressive. This guy goes for it on 4th downs. If they have a 4th and 1 protecting the lead in the 4th quarter at their 40, they're not punting the ball. They're going to throw the ball. They're going to try and get a first down. I think it's an edge to Andy Reid in that.
I'll agree with that, Howard, and I bet it's a creative play call on that 4th and 1 as well.
Yeah.
I might have said Arians prior to last year's Super Bowl because Andy Reid was, forever the bridesmaid. Couple things about Arians that would worry me. Number one, of course, early in the year, Bruce was intent on wanting to run his stuff, not necessarily the plays that Tom Brady was most comfortable with. Secondly, one of his credos is no risk it, no biscuit. And I'm always a little leery of these coaches in big games who are like, this is our identity. This is what we do. We're going to live or die with this. Bill Belichick has proven to all of us, if you don't adapt, if you don't adjust, if you can't be a chameleon, find ways to win specific games against specific opponents, then you're not at the highest level of coaching. I think Andy Reid is a little closer to that than Bruce Arians.
I just think it's great that the coaches are the same age as Bob. So.
Thank you. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. As you're watching this game, I guarantee there will be, I can't guarantee the score. I can't guarantee who's going to cover or to total points or any of that stuff. I can guarantee you there'll be way too many shots, sideline shots of coaches. Now, on a normal game, I can tolerate it because at least you try and sense some emotion. But you're going to have two coaches in masks. You're not going to be able to see or tell anything. And yet the dum-dums that run television, like Shannon used to, are going to continue to show
Here we go.
Stupid, useless pictures of coaches in mass. You can't see what they're saying or tell what they're saying. The days of the guy holding up the sheet, right? Run 5-4.
You don't have to do that.
You don't have to do that anymore.
That's right. There's a mask.
You do know why TV guys resort to go into coaches.
Well, because they're stupid.
No, because they don't move. Cameramen can always find coaches. They can't necessarily always find players.
They're obvious. Yeah. Hey, you gotta see coaches because one of the prop bets is whose nostril shows first, Andy Reid or Bruce Arians. I got money on that.
Yeah, well,
I'll tell you what. I think you're going to see every time Brady does something, you're going to see a shot of Mahomes. Every time Mahomes does something, you're going to see a shot of Brady.
Well,
you're going to see more shots of the quarterbacks.
That's what you're going to see.
You're going to see more shots of the quarterbacks than you are the coaches tomorrow.
Well, I hope so. At least you can see their faces most of the time. All right. We cannot do this without doing predictions. And I don't want to know who's going to win by how many. I want a score. Because there's many people who will be interested in the over-under here. And so, well, Shannon, I'll give it to you first. We'll let our guests go. Well, they won't go last. I go last, but you go first.
Oh, yeah. So, because here, guys, just for the record, it's going to be, you're all wrong. And then Bob gives his score.
Yes.
So it's 37-27 Tampa.
Ooh, okay. SEKERES, we'll get you second.
I'll go 38-35 Kansas City, and let's hope for an all-timer here.
If it's 38-35, it is an all-timer, Matty.
Yeah, I would think so.
Simon.
I'll take the over. 34-31 Kansas City.
Okay, go, Bob.
All right, of course.
You're all wrong.
You're all wrong. 21-17 Tampa. This is not going to be the offensive that you guys think it is. This is Brady is going to delay this game. He's no fast snaps. He's going to go into the huddle. He's going to snap the ball 1 second before the clock runs out. He's going to run the ball like crazy. Wide receivers are going to be told, stay in bounds, let the clock run. Yeah. And Super Bowls, if you want them to be, can be very, very conservative. And I think Brady will dictate that, and Mahomes will follow suit, whether intentionally or otherwise. I think this game's going under.
By the way,
under by a lot.
The one thing that always jumps out of me about Tom Brady, and I think we're all of a vintage that we would remember this. I was a Raider fan as a kid. AFL Raiders, AFC Raiders. And George Blanda at 42 looked like my grandfather. Why doesn't Tom Brady at 43 look like my grandfather? I mean, seriously, George Blanda looked like he could have been an extra in Gunsmoke, and Tom Brady looks like a kid still. This is driving me crazy.
Anyone
it's the modern.
Anyone want to bet Brady doesn't play until he's past 45? Anybody want to take that bet?
No.
You think he will play past 45?
I think he will.
Do you? I'm going to say
He said
no.
that
I
this
know he
week.
said that. Yeah. I'm going to say he won't play past 45. No.
Oh.
Does anybody think if he wins Sunday, he hangs it up?
No.
Goes out on top?
That'd be nice.
Not without people in the building. Honestly, I think a lot of when you're an athlete, you're at that level, you want to play in front of the biggest crowds to finish and he's going to be able to decide himself, right? He's going to be able to decide himself.
He wants to go play football. He wants to go to the stadium every day. He doesn't want to go home. What's he got at home? Gisele Bundchen. What's he got at home? He's got nothing at home to go home to.
Well, he certainly doesn't have a golf game. We know that. So.
Boys, enjoy the ball game. It's always a pleasure, and if we can, we'll have you back down the road. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Anytime, guys. Enjoy the game.
Thanks, Bob.
You too.
Thanks, John.
If you like the show, subscribe to your preferred podcast platform. We'll see you next time.
What about you, Bob?
Oh,
do you subscribe?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, John, thank you very much for asking.
Good. I worried about that. Yes.
Goodbye.